Life as it seems, a sea of events among a sea of bigger events. What made the evolution decision to leave the ocean and crawl onto the land? What would be the reason? It all seemed to work just fine as the status quo, yet there was some kind of driving force that provoked the need to evolve beyond the norm. What is behind this kind of motivation and ability to do so? What was it that even provoked the idea that there was another dimension called land, that something could live on? It is all debatable, but nonetheless it happened, and that is what is important. We are now in a similar situation. We live on the land as terrestrial beings, yet some are compelled to evolve further, maybe into another form of life altogether. But the exciting part is this time we don't have to wait for it to happen mechanically and slowly over millions of years. We can evolve with knowledge now and make the conscious decision to evolve. The question is, do you want to still just live in a tank that looks really big, yet still has its limited boundaries, or leave the tank, see things more objectively like the people outside watching, and maybe leave the whole paradigm altogether? Some people are trying to physically leave the Earth, but then there are others like Einstein, Leonardo da Vinci, Copernicus, and others that also found the need to explore and escape these mortal bounds through their own mental, psychological, and metaphysical means. Why does anyone choose to pursue the path of escaping the ordinary is a question each person has to answer for themselves. However, since you are watching this, it is obvious what your answer is. But the how to do it part is also something that each person has to figure out for themselves too. However, there are some commonalities to all of those who were and are inspired visionary thinkers. You will learn what those commonalities are, what obstructs us, what furthers us, and what steps you can take to find your own visionary purpose. Even if you are just fine with the way things are, I'm sure you will still want to feel physically good, emotionally and mentally, and have a sense of purpose. We all need to feel connected with something bigger than ourselves, to feel the force. After many years of study and experimentation, I'm so excited to show you the most amazing, fun, life-changing method to become a visionary yourself. What you fill your mind with is your business. How to expand your mind is mine. Where do you go to learn how to develop your visionary capabilities? Everyone talks about thinking out of the box, but has anyone actually shown you how? Schools don't do it. In fact, they obstruct us from developing those capabilities. Schools teach you only how to memorize, calculate, be very detail-oriented, and maybe a little problem-solving. The idea of developing your imagination is replaced with busy work at best, a random statement, a theory that a teacher might say here or there, but for the most part, most teachers have no idea themselves what it actually means to be a visionary. The reason it does not exist is because the educational system does not allow it to exist. The teachers themselves have no education themselves of how to do anything different, and even if they do want to do something different, they have no real method to do so. The few that do somehow eke out something different either are marginalized or discouraged. Once in a great while, someone escapes the labyrinth of mediocrity. They make a movie about it, everyone says it's great, and then they go back to doing the same old thing. To make matters worse, some websites promise you greater intelligence, but they just show you how to calculate, memorize, and problem solve faster, just like in school, and imitate a computer. But that is not objective thinking, nor is it actual intelligence training. What is the force behind this type of education? When you step back and see what is going on with life on this planet, it's apparent that the primary goal for every life form is to reproduce, reproduce, reproduce. We are not even satisfied with the normal means. We have to try and do it artificially too. In fact, the lower the life form, the more reproduction becomes its only purpose for existence. There are forces that want to make humans more and more mechanical. They want an educational system that only teaches us how to be smart enough to run the computers, but not imaginative enough to question the whole system to begin with. They want a society to be motivated by survival. They want us to believe that if we give them all of our money, it will come raining back down on us like manna from heaven. They hide behind pseudo-patriotic gestures and get us to fight their economic wars. Meanwhile, they are stealing the wealth of our whole world, our minds. The idea of people being motivated by inspiration and serving their visions is a threat to their greedy control over us. But in reality, inspiration is more productive as a motivator than survival. The ability to envision and create is unique to humans. Animals don't do it, computers can't do it, nor can they teach us how to do so. The need to have more imaginative people is not only important individually, it is the survival of our human culture as we know it. The evidence of this is how a child starts out hopeful and imaginative and ends up buried in endless meaningless work, in insecure jobs, no matter how educated we are. But here's the good news. We can fight back by having dreams and passionately pursuing them. There is a way to change this educational system so we can enjoy an amazing future. Being a visionary, if you are not already one, starts here. And if you are a visionary, let me show you how we can all work together without egos getting in the way, and to make inspired visionary thinking accessible to the whole world. There is plenty of room in the universe to satisfy all of our visions. So let's start. Look at these clouds. What do you see? Do you see images? Just as your mind can project images in cloud formations, it can also be trained to be a visionary by developing the same faculty that projects these cloud images and its associations. Being a visionary is learning how to trust that you have an inner mind that can fill in the blanks all on its own without us censoring the answers. So let's try a small mind experiment. Imagine yourself traveling through space as fast as you possibly can. Feel what that feels like. Now double it and see how that feels. Now double it again. Okay, stop. I said, imagine yourself traveling through space as fast as you possibly can, and what happened? You formed an imaginary picture of how fast is fast. Why? Because when I said double it, you could. And then you formed another imaginary picture. Now when I said double it a second time, maybe you could, or maybe you couldn't. But even if you couldn't, you still formed an imaginary picture. This time the picture was, I just can't imagine it any faster. How fast is fast? How big is big? How empty is empty? The universe seems to be getting bigger and particles seem to be getting smaller. Maybe simply because someone imagined it was possible. So who do you think you are and what you think you can do? Are you limiting yourself through your own imaginary picture of what that is? As was mentioned, up until now, evolution has been the result of some mechanical evolutionary process. And now we have the opportunity to take control of it and hasten the pace. But there is a great obstacle that keeps us from our evolution and fulfilling our dreams. What is this great horror that most people fear? It is our own damn self-judgment. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, wishing to be liked, doing things for acceptance rather than being compelled by a higher purpose and our visions. Evolution is the overcoming of fear of the unknown. So now it is time to evolve and get past these fears. We just have to not be afraid of making mistakes. Besides, what is a mistake anyway? Isn't it really just stepping from an expected reality into an unexpected one? The only real failure is the length of time it takes to accept that new reality. I once saw a young virtuoso cello player. You could see how he loved everything about playing that cello. It actually didn't even look like he was playing it. It looked more like he was squeezing the nectar out of it. He didn't care if he was being watched or not. He was in his own personal nirvana. At one point, he played a little scratchy note, a mistake. But instead of flustering him, he took that note and turned it into the most beautiful, heartfelt sound, to the point that you wanted to hear him make another mistake and another one. This is the beauty of transforming the unexpected, otherwise mislabeled a mistake. Einstein's E equals mc squared is not just about the transformation of energy and matter, but it is understanding that there are many known and unknown wavelengths. Gravity, vibration, sound, light, but there are also radio waves, microwaves, infrared, ultraviolet, gamma rays, and so on. But what I'm talking about are creative waves of ideas that any number of people can access at the same time. We can perceive these hidden wavelengths through practice and recognizing the reactions to their effects. For example, these starlings know how to stay together in a certain proximity and yet move in an amorphous pattern. The same is true with these fish balls. Even higher intelligent forms like these in dolphins all seem to behave in patterns not too dissimilar to the magnetic fields of the aurora borealis. But what about us? Do we act in mass? Yes, we do, and here is how. Fashion. Why is it that one color or style is popular one year and something different the next? It is not the decision of any one individual. It is a mass decision. Have you ever tried to start a fashion? No, it has to be something that more than one person agrees on. Fads. The pet rock, for example. It was quite the rage. Now, if you gave it to someone, you'd be lucky if they didn't throw it at you. Inventions. Sometimes the patent office will get a submission for the same invention from unrelated sources within days, if not hours. Baby names. It is well known that there are different baby names that suddenly become popular periodically. Calculus. Leibniz and Newton discovered calculus around the same time and didn't know each other before or even lived in the same country. And now there are many people waking up to the fact that there are unexplained objects flying around the earth. When it is time for an idea, people en masse begin to get it. We even communicate to each other energetically every day. We make statements, state of mind meant. Do you know what I mean? It is not the words, but a common state of mind being communicated. Einstein half-jokingly said in regards to this, "The secret of being a genius is not revealing your sources." What did he mean by that? What he meant was that ideas don't come from us, they come through us. You see, science has been able to map our brains and map the macro pattern of the universe, only to find how similar they look and how energy is transmitted the same basic way. Why wouldn't there be a symbiotic relationship between the two cosmoses? It is all about electromagnetic chemical reactions. Why don't we naturally detect these hidden waveforms? Because we are not used to the sensation of them. If you've never tasted vanilla, there is no way to describe it. You must have the experience of it to understand it. The same thing is true with detecting different creative wavelengths. That is why I have developed the workshops, so you can not only get a taste of this new sensation, but spend enough flight time in it that its feelings become very clear and familiar to you. What is inspiration? Inspiration can be defined in many ways, but one way to define it is that it is chemistry. It is the result of making many connections of ideas in different parts of your brain all at once. The aha moments. These moments produce a production of serotonin and endorphins. Exciting the brain through accelerated holographic thinking, the use of the left and right sides of your brain simultaneously, will excite the brain this way and produce the reverse engineering of inspiration. Learning how to do specific brain exercises that I will show you will engage you to become more inspired anytime you want. These are called sprites. They occur when there is a supercell of electrical buildup in thunderclouds. Normally, thunderclouds can exist up to 30,000 feet. But when it is a supercell, there is a plasma called sprites that connects with the magnetic field of the Earth at 60,000 feet. When this happens, it actually sends reverberations around the whole magnetic field of the Earth that scientists have reported. This relates to us because when we excite our brains, it affects our own magnetic field and will begin to attract or repel different things to us. In this case, ideas and visionary thinking. When we excite the brain and then suddenly become quiet, we become a vortex to attract ideas. Now this is great under ideal conditions. The challenge is, how can we do this in ordinary chaotic conditions that life presents? The brain exercises that you will be shown will speed up the chaos and show you how to be the calm, conscious eye of the storm. And when you become the conscious eye of the storm and do it long enough, you begin to collect so much creative energy. You give it off, and people around you will pick this up and feel creative too. You will actually radiate creative gamma rays, the same type of rays that supernovas give off, just not as strong, obviously, or none of us would still be here. So here are the core ideas that you will need to understand to become a strong visionary thinker. There are 3 elements of visionary thinking: cleansing the magnetic field, channeling, and being an objective observer. Physically, we are all electrochemical magnetic beings. We all like to do things to cleanse our magnetic fields. Chemically, we do it through diet, fasting, drugs, fragrances, and the enjoyment of beauty and nature. Electrically, we do it with laughter, positive and loving emotions, and creating art. Magnetically, if you hit an iron rod or hit it against some concrete, it will temporarily become a magnet because the electrons line up from the shock of the impact. So stamping of your feet through dance, drumming, spinning. The whirling dervishes would spin their magnetic field against the magnetic field of the earth. Children love to spin. Running, amusement rides, tribal primal rituals, and the experience of getting back to nature will all cleanse your magnetic field. So how do we know when we have cleansed our magnetic field? We feel good. We feel good about ourselves, our bodies, no self-judgment, and we feel free to simply be ourselves. You will also learn how to do holographic thinking, the use of both sides of your brain simultaneously. One way to understand holographic thinking is through perspective drawing. In fact, perspective drawing was so powerful, it actually was what created the Renaissance. Why? Because when you think in three dimensions, ideas are not linear but spherical. And you can step away from just any one idea and compare and combine them with other ideas. That is the foundation of great thinkers. When we think holographically, you are able to get your critical self out of the way and channel ideas. The third element is becoming the objective observer. What does that mean? It means that you don't get so immersed in things. You can step back and see things in a greater perspective. Are you your eyeballs or that which looks out of them? The face simply becomes a screen that life plays out from. Leonardo da Vinci used to stare at a burning candle at the foot of his bed and imagine. Einstein would imagine himself traveling through space. So now you have seen many of the different processes and experiences that are involved in a more visionary, inspired life. The big question now is how to actually actualize these processes and leave the limited fish tank. People's brains are usually compartmentalized. One aspect of ourselves is unaware or in conflict with some other part of ourselves. The more rigidly compartmentalized a person's thinking is, the more limited their thinking is, and the more intense the internal conflicts are. One way intelligence can be physically defined is how fast and comprehensively a person is able to make connections to all the different compartments of their brain. Holographic thinking makes more connections in our brains faster. It allows multitasking so you can be in your higher mind and still function in the world at the same time. So when I speak of brain expansion, this is one of the main factors. It is the dilation of neural pathways and their connections through the practice of opening up and exercising these pathways on a regular basis. Just like sprites affect the magnetic field of the earth, The practice of exciting the brain and then suddenly becoming silent in your mind affects your own magnetic field. It creates a vortex which induces higher brain functions, thus attracting unique perceptions and ideas. Developing the ability to do all of this, even in the midst of chaos, will result in producing a tremendous vortex of creative energy that will shine from you and stimulate others around you. Even if you completely disagree with Einstein or Leonardo, their beings alone has affected other scientists and the knowledge of the universe forever. Now, even if you are an inspired person to a lesser or greater extent, it is still important to have a consistent, dependable method to be inspired. That is what you will get from the Mind Mavericks Brain Games. You will now have a way to be inspired at will instead of waiting for a creative bolt of lightning to strike.